So let me welcome you to this webinar, the second in the series. My name is Kristoffer Rapacki. I'm the technical head of the Danish ELIXIR node, and it is in this capacity that I'm going to lead the webinar. So I have two other people from the Danish node to participate, to assist me also. One is John Ison, whom many of you know, I suppose. The other is Emil Ridza, who is one of the chief developers of the registry, which is the subject of the webinar, by the way. That is the ELIXIR Tools and Data Service Registry that was released 2 weeks ago, roughly, after a longer period of work and preparations. So the first thing I will ask you to do is to mute your mics, to mute your microphones, to improve the quality of the sound. I've been advised to do that by Nicola, who knows the mechanism. So mute your mics. You will unmute them for the discussion, of course, when we have gone that far. So the agenda is very simple. We have 1 hour, not necessarily to fill it completely, but we will start with brief presentations and the demo, and then there will be an open discussion when you will be able to comment and question, and then it will become much more interactive. But the beginning will be just us speaking. So first I will give a very brief introduction, just a few minutes to paint the landscape. Then we will have a demo of the registry done by Emil. It will focus on the querying or browsing functionality. Then the presenter function will pass to John Ison, who will give a more registry in-depth, slightly longer presentation in which he will go deeper on different aspects of this effort. This together will take around, say, half an hour or less, and then after that there will be time for discussion. The discussion, well, we are currently roughly 20 people, so we will see how it works in practice. The questions could be put on the chat or aloud if the discussion is not very sort of intense. So I move on, I think, now to, introducing the Danish ELIXIR node, which is the body working with the registry. And on this slide, you see the statement from our original node proposal, in which we propose to address the main problems in tool utilization in the life sciences community. And the registry is obviously intended to address the first problem, the most obvious starting problem with tool utilization or resource utilization, which is the discovery. We need to discover them, obviously, before you can even start thinking of using them. So tool discovery as such this term is often used without much reflection or thought of what it actually means, but it turns out that it can be decomposed into a quartet of actions. The first of which is finding them. You need to locate the tools, actually become aware that they exist. The other is you need to understand them. Once you have found them, a given tool, say, you need to understand what it does and how it does it. And then, equipped with this understanding, if you have found several possible tools, possibly matching your requirements, you need to be able to compare them based on the understanding you have acquired, and then select the one that you really need, or the one that best fits your needs. So the registry is intended to assist this entire process, and in order to be able to do that, it needs to possess certain features. The first of them is being comprehensive as possible. It goes without saying that you cannot find tools in the registry if they are not there. So one of the focus areas of the registry effort is to include as many resources and tools as possible, because that increases, obviously, is actually the key to its usefulness and relevance. It also needs to stay updated, because this is not a one-time effort. The new tools appear all the time, and you need to be able to include new tools and keep the registry in a certain state of update or current update. The other requirement that is equally important is the one of understanding what you have found in the registry. So the registry must provide sufficient and precise information about each tool, because otherwise the user is only half helped. So the user needs to be able to conclude from the information in the registry as much as possible of the nature of the tool, its specifically scientific function, so that the subsequent decisions can be made whether to use it or not, or you look on for other tools. And finally, it needs to be convenient to use, convenient to browse and search, because if we make the interfaces cumbersome or difficult to use, then of course we drop the people. We have scientists who want to do it smoothly and efficiently. So the registry has these have been our guiding principles in the construction of the registry. Now I have highlighted in red the precise information. So it is also not obvious what precise information is, but the one very important aspect of the information about the tools is the scientific function. After all, the registry is about life science tools. So the scientific function must be taken care of with special attention, and we do this by using a controlled vocabulary, which is EDAM. You have a link up there. And with the help of this controlled vocabulary, we have annotated the tools currently in the registry, and in such a way that it is possible to search on scientific functionality using this controlled vocabulary. This, we hope, is a key to being able to find the tools matching the user's needs and requirements efficiently. So the basic structure of the registry is, as you can see, what is in violet, in purple, is the registry itself, which consists of the description model. That is the description model that is intended to give this sufficient and precise information about all the resources included in the registry. The data is the actual content, the tools, the database services, and other resources. And finally, the upkeep is the combined curation and update strategy. That is an integrated part of the registry, because without it, the registry would lose relevance very quickly. And then the interfaces are essential. They are not necessarily part of the registry itself, because you can, as it will be shown later in the webinar, you can actually dump the content of the registry and make your own interface if you feel like it. But we, of course, provide interactive interfaces for both browsing and resource registration. So this brings me to my last slide, which is an idealization of the registry, intended to give in sort of the main principal idea how using it, what using it will look like. So I would like to propose that you should see the registry as an sort of intelligent spreadsheet. And the illustration you are looking at is intended to give this impression. On this picture, the columns are the attributes of the resource description model, and the rows are the individual tools and services. And we envisage that the user coming to the registry to search, to look for suitable tools, will act in the following way. And I have a little sequence of actions, potential sequence of actions by a hypothetical user. So let us say that this person has come to, it's a scientist for now, has come to the registry to look for tools that perform protein secondary structure prediction from sequence. So first, in the query interface, which we are looking at, idealized query interface, this will be selected as a topic or operation function of the tool that we wish to find. And then after this filter has been applied, then let us say, and as in this example, 3 tools have popped up. So all these 3 tools perform protein secondary structure prediction from sequence. We have 3, we could have 30. But we have 3, and then we continue to specify, narrow in our search more by introducing a technical requirement, which is that, let us say, it must run under Linux. It is a rational requirement. Let us say that our scientist only has a Linux box, and he wants to download this tool and run it at home under Linux. And then after this filter has been applied, one tool disappears because it didn't run under Linux. And then there is a possibility of making the search even more specific by demanding an administrative requirement that it must be for free, because this project is poor, has no money. So after we have applied that filter, then the second of the 3 original tools goes away, and then we only have one that matches all the 3 requirements that the user might have. So this is it. So I think that with this brief introduction and this metaphor, spreadsheet metaphor of the registry, I conclude here and pass on to Emil. I will transfer the presenter function to Emil now, so that he can run a demo, a real-life demo of these actions that I have sort of shown in an idealized way. I'm now looking for Emil. Emil, where is Emil?
Nah, super, thank you. Now I have it. All right, so I'll try to show you my screen then. Fantastic. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. All right, so I guess I'll just jump right to it. I'd like to show you the ELIXIR registry of tools and data services. And what you can see here is the first interface that you see when you enter the website. This is a splash screen that can remind you of Google. We've gone for the very simplistic display. And as you can see here, it has a search bar where you can enter a keyword, or you can press on advanced search over here in order to go to the querying interface, which is actually the interesting thing that I'm going to show you right now. This is the querying interface. It comprises of several components, and at the very bottom, you can see the list of resources that have been registered in the registry. So right now we have over 6,000 of these resources. So each of the resources is represented by a row, as you can see here at the bottom, and each of the columns represent different attributes that a resource might have. And since there are very many attributes that a resource can have, and there are very many resources, so it's essentially a lot of data to display. And displaying this amount of data in a 2-dimensional way is a bit of a challenge. That's why we have gone with a spreadsheet type of display. And as you can see here, the one panel above the list of resources, you can choose which columns are being displayed, which columns means which attributes of resources are being displayed. So using this, you can choose the attributes that you are most interested in, and the view below will update to that. So for instance, I can disable the tag attribute and instead enable the interface one. So you can see here that some of these tools have a command line as their interface, others have web UI. Yes. You can also use these 3 predefined views that each of them has a different number of attributes selected by default. So you can use those, or you can create your own view by clicking on these things. And then, in order to search through this list, for this rather large list of resources, you can either use this Omni search bar that is at the top, and with this, you can perform a sort of rudimentary search across all the resources and across all the different attributes of all the resources. So you can use this as a sort of a starting point for your search for whatever it is that you need. And then if you would prefer to do a more fine-grained filtering, then you can do that using this panel over here, where you can add filters, and you can filter by different elements, different attributes of all the resources. So maybe I'll show you a very brief demo of that by searching with for a few different resources that, for instance, have the function name, which is an EDAM term, the function name of multiple sequence alignment. Multiple sequence alignment. As you can see, it suggests the different EDAM terms that appear in the database. So if I just click on that, I get 105 entries instead of over 6,000. And all these entries have multiple sequence alignment as their function name. And if I go and create an even more fine-grained filter, like for instance, here I would like to have resources that have an output in the data format of MSF. Then I can also do that. And then I only have 24 entries found. And then if I'm mostly interested in command line tools, I can add another filter where the interface here will be command line. Command line. Like that. And then I only have 3 different entries that have command line as their interface, that fulfill all these different criteria that I've specified here. And then after I've found a few different tools that fulfill this criteria, I can click on their name. So for instance, I can click on DCA here in order to open a page that is dedicated to that particular resource. So here I have all the attributes of that particular resource, like for instance, its name, version, description, and all of that, and also its homepage URL that then I can use now in order to learn more about this tool, or there's also contact information, pretty much every single piece of information that is in the registry about this particular tool. And then at the very bottom of this, there is also a button to view the JSON representation of that resource. Click on that. Sorry, someone's talking in the background, so that's sort of throwing me off. But you can see the JSON representation of this particular resource in the way that it can be uploaded to the database. So this can be downloaded using the buttons down here, and then uploaded, changed, for instance, then uploaded using the API, for instance. Yeah, so I think that is all I had to show you, and I think I'll give the presenter role to John right now. So if you could just give me a second for that. John. There we go. Okay.
Thanks, Neil. Can you see this? What can you see, Christopher? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's very good. It's full screen and excellent.
Okay. So what I'm going to talk about now is really just to put the registry into a broader context of the things that are happening within ELIXIR and ELIXIR DK specifically. So the core aim really is to deliver a discovery portal for bioinformatics resources worldwide, built on a federated curation of a wide range of key resources. So this involves service monitoring, resource integration, interoperability aspects, as well as community-centered benchmarking. All the activities, including intensive user support, are going to be focused really around delivering impact for the end users. So all of our future plans really are, we're trying to have the user in mind. So what I'm just going to take you through is an overview of the technical components and thematic components in the plan. So for the registry, as Christopher pointed out, for it to be useful, it has to be comprehensive, it has to be consistent. And that means providing the essential scientific and technical coverage, both in the registry itself, but also in the controlled vocabulary, EDAM, that underpins the registry. To achieve this, it's going to take a major community curation effort. That includes vocabulary building, resource annotation, and of course the registration itself. So to ensure quality, to ensure that curation process is sustainable and high quality, it has to be federated across the registry stakeholders. So the first priority really is building and supporting a community of curators to help us with this huge task. So to do that, the plan is, and this is contingent on getting funding, of course, within ELIXIR, but the plan is that there will be dedicated curators who are based at local sites. There'll also be a so-called task force, a curation task force, that will be deployable to any ELIXIR node or any other partner in response to high priority needs. And that task force will be made up of ontology developers, curators, and scientific and technical experts. And their main activity will be to run hackathons, which we're calling the curation and usability hackathons. And they'll have a common theme of curation. And by that I mean the annotation and registration of resources, including any necessary developments of the controlled vocabulary. So to promote networking and the community builder, which is so important, the hackathons will also be combined with social events, including knowledge exchange workshops and strategy workshops. And the plan is to include relevant infrastructures, all the bio-infrastructures, institutes, projects, and run these events on any themes that are suggested by the community, including, as I say, the research infrastructures across the board. So the registry isn't just about finding, it isn't just about discovery. We also plan to support monitoring and benchmarking of tools in a systematic and sustainable way. So monitoring in its most basic form is about ensuring a described service is available for use. But it can also include other things like whether a service is advertised, is working as advertised, by judging it against some standard test data. Benchmarking, in contrast, is concerned with assessing the scientific performance of the tool. So the plan here is to review the existing quality and performance metrics, then assess their usefulness in a life science context. And then secondly, to arrange and coordinate benchmarking competitions, and then expose. Then the plan is to expose the results of these benchmarking competitions and the monitoring into the registry, alongside the basic scientific and technical description of the resources. So in the long term, the hope is that the registry, it's going to fulfill an advanced discovery function. It'll allow people to understand, compare and select resources, not just for basic details, but also in light of this scientific benchmarking and the crucial monitoring, their availability functions. So we're well aware that people are going to continue to use Google for their web searches, and we're also very aware that it's important for people to understand resources in a scientific context. So the plan is to ensure that any resource that is registered is citable, is discoverable by the major search engines, and is also connected with the literature. So the plan here is to create, for each resource that's registered, a web page at a persistent URL, and this URL can provide a means to cite and trace the resource. And these web pages are going to be search engine optimized, and include useful links to publications, citation map, that sort of thing. And also, we'll have some technical markup. So it will support some cool things within the major search engines, like Google Rich Snippets, that sort of stuff. So hopefully, with these developments, the registry will promote resources and deliver impact for the developers of the resources and also the institutes that host them, basically by making the resources rank higher in the Google search hits and therefore be more findable. So this should be seen as a complement. Hopefully the registry query interface itself will become people's first port of call. Obviously, we're hoping for that. But even, just for bog standard Google search users, we have them firmly in mind too. Yeah, and the scientific context is going to be achieved basically by cross-linking to the major literature databases. For example, from PubMed Central to the registry using the APIs of both resources. So we're also very mindful that it's all about delivering user impact. This is the plan. So to do this, we are planning to provide direct user support as well as indirect user support. So for the direct support, the plan here is to leverage the existing forums, by a star, by a planet, and have somebody basically patrol those forums and answer any bioinformatics questions concerning tools and resources. So where a relevant resource exists, the person posing the question would be pointed to the registry. If the resource existed but wasn't registered, we could register it and ensure that it's documented and described properly. And we'll also ensure that the query interface that Emil showed you can answer questions in the form that users pose them. So by doing all of these things, we're going to try and put the user in the driving seat of the registry development. Then that just leaves, the indirect support mechanisms, and that can include things like documentation, good practice guidelines for resource annotation, curation, this sort of thing. So on the bottom of the slide now, this is just reflecting that there's a general trend towards the use of workbenches as an environment for using tools and accessing data. Especially where resources have to be used in combination with each other. So we're planning to, in due course, to implement what we're calling a workbench integration enabler that will basically develop this idea that once a resource is registered with us, we'll then facilitate the integration of that resource in the major workbench environments. So technically that can be achieved by basically translating the description of the resource on our side into whatever metadata format is required by the likes of Mobile, Galaxy, Taverna, and so on. And that should be a big convenience improvement for the workbench guys, the integrators. But it should also, have an impact on resource interoperability. Of course, integrating resources into workbenches by default makes them more usable with other resources, so it improves interoperability directly. There's also a plan to develop a lightweight service launchpad, basically, where you've got a programmatic tool. This will allow you to run it. So there's a lot of things in the pipeline. Another aspect and this is really, building the federation that the registry relies on, is by facilitating collaborations between scientists and developers. And really there's two strands for this. The first is a matchmaking service. That the idea here is to connect the scientist who has technical requirements for tools, it might be new functions or new interfaces, connect that person with a developer. So this will allow, the idea is, a scientist going to the registry with a question. They might find a resource that does something close to what they need, but not quite. We'll then facilitate the handshake with the developer of that resource and allow the person who makes the query to phrase their question in the right way to that developer, and then run what we're calling matchmaking meetings to facilitate actually real developments to come from the back of to be driven basically by the users. So the second strand is what we're calling synergy meetings, resource synergy meetings. And here, the truth is there's a lot of redundancy in the resource providers at the moment, different registries, catalogues, lists, and so on. And the aim here is to try and reduce some of that redundancy. For example, identifying and encouraging shared data sharing arrangements or coordination of curation, these sorts of things. And there's also scope, of course, to cross-link existing resources. So these are all facets, really, of the broader registry effort. And I think the last thing to say is the closer we can get the curation, the documentation of resources, the closer we can get that to the person who developed the resource, the better. So the plan here is to embed, the resource annotation somehow into the routine workflow of a developer. And we'll see how that pans out, but it will involve software developments within the documentation generators, IDEs, the development frameworks, this sort of thing. And the hope is, what this will try and achieve is that, the use of EDAM, but also the other attributes that in our description model are mandatory, that these are exposed to a developer so that they can make those annotations whilst they write their code. And in the long term, that should lead to better descriptions that are more sustainable and that can filter through into the registry. So this is it. I'm gonna pass you back to Christopher now for any questions.